When did it become M.A.D. booking?
It started to be in the 80s, a little bit difficult for us because from our squad shows we still did, right? It turned up to be the scene, especially in Berlin, very big. That means most of our shows had like 1,000 to 1,500 people, or a lot of shows, up to 2,000. When we did Fugazi, for example, or No Means No, we did it most in the university. We had up to 2,000 people, right? And also the hardcore bands getting more and more feedback. You know, Verbal Assault was very famous, Social Unrest, you know, all the First Breed. So we had the feeling that the industry in Europe got a little eye on us because we've been somehow successful or more successful than them. We built up a whole network, what really works, what really was a big concurrence to the music industry. And at that point, we said, you know what, we have to legalize ourselves. At the second time, we also feel like it was more and more work. It was no hobby anymore. It was not the network of friends anymore. It was like serious work. I mean, everybody calls us to do something. We had a full-time job, but not the income. So at one time we said, you know what, we start with a thing, we legalize ourselves. So we sit together in the office and usually there was like always people hanging because, well, our living room, right? And we've been always saying there was 10 or 15 people in the night. We said, all right, tomorrow we legalize ourselves and we will be a company. And one guy said, oh, why, you know what? You have to have a name then. We said, oh, we have a name, all right. What name? And then we all sit there and hang around and there was a song in the background, like, and the guy was screaming like, make a difference. And somebody said, make a difference, great name. And we said, oh, we call ourselves Make a Difference. And we've been like, no, because if we exist more than a year and nothing really changed, you know, and somebody said, think about you can do it for 10 years and then you still Make a Difference. It's like, no way, no. And we said, you know what, let's call M.A.D. That's great. That's us. We are crazy. We're the crazy ones. You know, the people always been happy when they're coming to their cities. You know what I mean? So we call us M.A.D. And we were like, no, there's that magazine, the fancy M.A.D. Yeah. And we said, oh, then we get legalized trouble with them. You know what? Just makes points in between called M.A.D. And we said, all right, then that. And then we went next morning there. We said, we want to be a company. Here's our company name, M.A.D. And that's how we started. So it has no real meaning. What we didn't know at that time, at least we know, but we didn't thought about it because we've been so in our hardcore and comic world finding the name. M.A.D. is the name for the military secret service in Berlin, in Germany.
Really?
So we had the same name as the military secret service. So we got calls from the cops once in a while, then want to know from us if that band is a right-wing band who's supposed to play there. And I always told them, I said, we are not the M.A.D., we are M.A.D. And that's how M.A.D. Tourbooking got involved, and Tourbooking was under M.A.D. at one point.
All right, so what was the first, it doesn't matter like if they were European or if they were from somewhere else, what was the first like real tour you booked?
I think the real first tour we counting as a full real European tour was with D.I. from California. Mm-hmm. And we booked it right away 2 months. 2 months, no days off.
So was it totally smooth and easy, or was it really?
Yes.
There's no problems?
No problems at all. Packed places. The only problem was DI came over, saw the first venue, and I've been like, oh my God, this will be a disaster. It's like 1,000 capacity. This is like way too big. And they said, like, you know, our label told us that will be no success because we're only selling 100 couple records here. And we've been like, no, you're very big over here. And they've been like, but we're not selling records. I said, maybe you don't get the right numbers, but that's different. I think after the 7th show, the band figured there has to be more records here because on the first 3 shows, they had already more people coming and singing along than they ever sold records in Europe. And then the tour continued 1.5 months.
Wow, man. How did they find you?
We had a person who been basically hanging around here with Bad Religion. Mm. And he organized the first Bad Religion tour with a friend of us, or a person we know back in the days, let's say. And he basically, us and them, got right away in contact. And he did in America tours for hardcore bands, Bad Religion, Agnostic Front, Verbal Assault, all these kind of bands. It's got this face in front of me, but not the name. And he stayed then with us, because most people stayed with us in our apartment back in the days. And then he came and turned around. He said, you know what, the last tour didn't work well. I mean, you know what I mean? Why are you not doing this? And we said, we could. He said, I got DI, I get Agent Orange. They all want to come. And we've been like, no problem. You know what I mean? And then he basically just did it. In the meantime, we've been always in America because in the mid-'80s, Europe was a little bit in one way. The European scene was not getting forward, bands falling apart because of the problem. And the English band actually metal or broken up. And everything was oriented to the American hardcore side. So I always flied over to America, to New York or San Francisco, was hanging around the Maximum Rock and Roll with Tim Johann, did the interviews on Maximum Rock and Roll Radio, you know what I mean? Been in conversation with them, been in conversation with the New York people or Washington, you know, or Boston too, with Mike Gitter back in the days when he did the magazine. And then basically we had this contact already. We met all these people and everybody was, we want to go to Europe. It's so big in Europe. It's so great in Europe. So it was a kind of like him. And then basically also the connection, you've been all over and you met everybody. You know, I think I was on the first rehearsal when they recorded the first song with Operation Ivy, when this whole Lookout thing started, because from Lookout, there was a good friend. We stayed with him and Dave and MDC. So we've been all there when this whole Gilman Street Lookout scene started and met everybody on the first steps and whatever. So we've been very like all over the place.
So you take this leap, you start this thing and say, okay, we're going to do this. And you're saying it like you're totally confident, like we're going to make this happen.
Yeah.
Did you have any fear, any doubt, or were you just like, this is going to work no matter what?
We had a lot of fear, a lot of doubt, but at that time we didn't. Because first of all, we've been young. Second, we had the idea to change the world and organize a network. And that was our mission. What works, so the bands we're working with, because in the early 80s, the whole punk and hardcore thing changed. At that time, it was the individual. You were the punk, you were the hardcore guy. Your mentality, your ideas, your heart, your way of living. But in the mid-'80s, the music is the key. The bands and the music, like the pop and rock industry, it was music, you know, and the individual didn't matter so much anymore. So we said, all right, if the music now is the communication point and everything is about music, we have to make sure this music can survive. The bands who want or have to do it professional, I said have because at that time it was a little bit difficult, but a lot of bands been touring America, South America, Europe, back to America, you know, maybe Asia, you know what I mean? So it was a full-time job. It was sure they have to make a living from that. And at that time, it wasn't really that view. Most people said, oh, no entrance, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, €5, you know, we're all DIY. DIY is like means, you know, play for free. But we said, if these guys are the key and everything of the network is music, we have to change it and walk over the edge between commercial and our thoughts and our beliefs, you know, or the ethics. And that was actually when we really started with M.A.D. the tours. That was really our concern to professional, basically, whatever was wrong at that time. That means making real structures, make sure the bands are not sleeping on floors with no windows anymore. You know what I mean? They're getting beds up to better statements, hotels, apartments, a lot of clubs professionalism in the same way and organized real apartments in the venues. You know, we wanted to make sure that when they're coming to a venue, there's welcome catering, dinner, drinks. They don't need anything because they're driving sometimes like 6, 7 hours or 5 hours. Traffic jam, they had no time to find something to eat. So everything has to be there. So we started basically with the catering, the drinks, the dinner, the accommodation to make sure this happened. And then the next step was basically to make financial wise, basically working somehow over a bridge that they come home and make money to make a living as a job. So there's no difference. And still, it's so underpriced compared to the commercial side that it's still kind of like the ethic and the beliefs we had on the beginning. So we always worked in. I mean, it worked, right? I mean, it's the biggest network. What built it up?